This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. I find it perfectly fitting that we got this news today about Nick Chubb not just squatting, but squatting a lot of weight, 540 pounds on the bar. I believe the bar is about 18 pounds if you go by what's on the Tsunami Bar website. And if you're wondering what the Tsunami Bar, when you watch this clip that I'm about to show you, it's why the bar bends so much while he's squatting it. We'll get into more details on why he chooses to squat with that kind of a bar, but here's the clip. Now, if you've been watching my channel for the last month, I've been talking about how we've heard that Nick Chubb had been squatting. When I had Cam Justice on the channel a month ago, she had told us that Nick Chubb said he was squatting. And now this is evidence of that being the case. One of the things you want to look for a player recovering from the injuries that Nick Chubb is recovering from are how are they able to strengthen their quads? What level of strength are they able to get back to? Now, again, this isn't Nick Chubb sprinting and cutting laterally like he's going to be cleared to practice or anything like that. But this is a great sign that Nick Chubb is coming back in squatting at a incredibly high level. Now let's talk about the Tsunami Bar, right? Because that bar bends, and I think that bar is a really key part of why you should be super excited about what you heard. Because again, it's not just that Nick Chubb is squatting. It's not just that Nick Chubb is squatting over 500 pounds again. It's that Nick Chubb is also doing this in what seems like how he likes to do this, right? The Tsunami Bar has been a key element of the viral Nick Chubb lifts that we have seen. If you go back from last year when he lifted, what, 80 pounds or something like that, that was something that was done on the Tsunami Bar, right? So not only is Nick Chubb working out, not only is Nick Chubb getting stronger, but Nick Chubb is seemingly able to work out with less limitations than what I think a lot of people thought, because this is not a controlled rehab environment. This is Nick Chubb working out at his high school like he usually does. So I just got to look at a high-res version of the lift that Nick Chubb did from last year. And it turns out that that was 580 plus the bar, right? So about 600 pounds. So he's actually not even as far off as I thought he was. The lift that he just did is 6 plates, or at least it appears to be 6 plates from the video. The one that he did last year was 6 plates, but with just 225s at the end. So it seems like Nick Chubb is like 1 rep and 50 pounds off from being exactly at the squat he was last year. Oh, that's mind blowing. That's mind blowing. I wanted to add that in to this part of the video because I did not get a good chance of looking at it, so I edited it, and oh my God. So add that to your optimism equation, but let pass Quincy finish, which is significant. Now, again, let's get back to that Tsunami Bar. The Tsunami Bar bends and it shakes that weight, right? You see that weight moves a lot. The reason that is, according to the Tsunami Bar website, is to better work on your stabilizers. Like when you're working out, a lot of people are anti-Smith machines back in the day because Smith machines, you don't get to balance the weight. The weight's already balanced by the machine. So there's some concern that you're not working on your stabilizers. It's a similar concept with the Tsunami Bar. Since the weight is bouncing and it's less stable, And it's a more difficult squat to maintain. It's harder to get low in that squat and maintain your balance. You're not just working on your quadricep strength, which is important for ACL recovery, but more importantly for ACL recovery, you're working on your muscle's ability to balance that level of weight as you come up and as you come down, because the weight is less stable. So it's not just a regular squat at 540 pounds, which again, it does not sound ridiculous in the context of Nick Chubb that he's squatting 540 pounds. We've literally almost seen him squat 700. It's ridiculous in the context of every other running back in the league, but that to Nick Chubb, 540 pounds 2 times, you would say it's about 70% strength of what we've seen Nick Chubb do at his absolute peak. Now, again, he doesn't need to get back to 680 pounds on the squat with the tsunami bar and no spot. Like, he does not need to get back there to be back at full strength. But what this does mean is that Nick Chubb's muscles are responding well. He's working well on the stabilization. And now at this point, it feels like we have enough information to be officially optimistic about Nick Chubb at the very least. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to go out and be irresponsible and say Nick Chubb guaranteed lock to be back week 1 or something crazy like that. But it does mean that we don't have to be ultra pessimistic about this, right? Like some of the projections I saw where they're like, Nick Chubb won't be back till November. Nick Chubb we'll be lucky if Nick Chubb even like resembles any. I think there is now permission for even the most pessimistic of us to become a little bit more optimistic about where Nick Chubb is, because this is incredible progress and it doesn't just exist in a vacuum, right? We saw Nick Chubb run earlier. We saw Nick Chubb squat. We've seen Nick Chubb do one-legged jumping exercises. We've seen Nick Chubb do lateral movement exercises. We've seen him sprint. We've seen him do all of these things, which indicate that he is getting through his rehab at a high pace. And then you add that on top of the fact that Nick Chubb, the last time he had a catastrophic knee injury like this in college, bounced back incredibly quick. And I think that is the one thing that we miss when we try to cover injury in sports media. We do a one-size-fits-all approach to injury in sports media because we are not doctors. And because we are not doctors, we go off of general timetables that doctors have provided, which means when Nick Chubb tears his ACL, we're going to go off of the general timetable for an average person to come back from their ACL. Maybe sometimes we'll throw in what other athletes take to get back from it, but we're generally working off of averages. The one thing with health coverage is that it has to be unique to whoever is getting the health coverage, right? It has to be tailored to the person getting the health coverage. And when you look at what Nick Chubb's medical history is, especially when it comes to stuff like this, he has a very outlierish history with recovery from injury, which meant to me that while you have to take the averages for what they are, you also understand that Nick Chubb has never been average, especially when it comes to stuff like this. So you have to leave room for him to be a bit of an outlier because he's proven that before. Some guys just shake off injury, right? Like there's no sell it. Nick Chubb appears to be one of those people. And what this does excite me about as well when it comes to Nick Chubb is I feel like this is another indicator that not just Nick Chubb's going to be able to come back and maybe play in the first part of the season. That's obviously something we hope for, but what kind of player will Nick Chubb be has also been a huge part of the question when it comes to Nick Chubb coming back. Will he be the same player? And when I see him being able to do the same exercises he did, not wearing a brace, squatting at the same level that he has. I mean, like, that tsunami bar has a max rated weight of 540 pounds, and he's already doing the max that the tsunami bar can offer you. And I'm not somebody who's ever squatted with the tsunami bar, so I don't know if like that bar itself makes the weights feel heavier. I assume it would. I don't know. It's a very difficult looking squat. Like, it's not just a regular squat. But anyway, you see him not just doing stuff that would indicate that his recovery is going well, but doing stuff that would indicate that he is getting back to the same strength levels that he used to be prior to the injury, which would indicate that, hey, there's a good chance Nick Chubb comes back from this injury and he's still Nick Chubb, or at least what 30-year-old or 29-year-old Nick Chubb would reasonably be, which would be huge for a Browns team that needs Nick Chubb. I mean, when I did the rewatch, especially during the first 2 weeks of the season, I'm like, damn, Nick Chubb was just so missed for this team, because what Nick Chubb provided you was an automatic way to get ahead of the sticks. Like, if you run Nick Chubb 2 times, you'll be at 3rd and short by the end of that down. Like, by the end of that set of downs, you'll be at 3rd and short. And I think that's what Nick Chubb provided. That was the biggest thing to this offense, let alone the 3rd and short ability, let alone the big play ability, all the other things that make Nick Chubb, or just the fact that that's another way to win the game. So to me, I'm not just encouraged because maybe Nick Chubb will come back, but I am encouraged because regardless of when Nick Chubb comes back, whether he comes back in October, November, or September, the way this rehab is looking like it's going, it appears to me that he might have a chance of being able to be Nick Chubb still. He's that much of an outlier. It's definitely possible. And again, you look back at when he got injured like that at Georgia. Again, he was in college, but his body is still his body. He got injured and then came back, played week 1, and I think he rushed for 1,500 yards in college football, which is not the same amount of games that you get in the pros, especially when Nick Chubb was playing college football. This is really good news. And it's not really good news just because of this one video. It's really good news because we've been getting a consistent stream of videos this offseason of these injuries getting better, or the rehab going well for Nick Chubb. And it hasn't really just been Nick Chubb, right? The same case is true for Deshaun Watson and the rehab off of his season-ending injury. We saw a video of DeJuan Jones playing basketball, which would indicate that he's ready to come back from his injuries. I believe even Jack Conklin mentioned something on Instagram that he's back and ready to go. And we'll see what we hear from Jed. But I think Jed practiced in minicamp. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe Jed Wills did something close to practicing during either OTAs or minicamps. The rehab for the guys who are injured seems to be going well, especially the 2 guys that you're worried about the most in Deshaun Watson and Nick Chubb. Deshaun Watson has dropped countless videos of him throwing. He threw in mini camps. I mean, it's at the point where you're not even really concerned about Deshaun Watson and his ability to come back to that injury. Nick Chubb is not at that point. His injury was much more devastating than Deshaun Watson's. But you have seen a lot of things that would encourage you about where Nick Chubb is, right? The running, the jumping, the one-legged jumping, the one-legged load, the one-legged balance drill, the side-to-side stuff that he's been doing, and now 540 pounds, over 560 once you include the barbell weight of 18 pounds. That's what the Tsunami bar weighs on the website. And you see a player who has a strong chance of not just coming back, but coming back earlier than expected and possibly being Nick Chubb again. This is a good day. And you know what? It's fitting that on a day like this, the day like today, I'm filming this minutes before this happens. You'll see it hours after it happens. But this thing right here, NCAA 14, this game went away. I played this while I was in college consistently. I used the team builder to make my Youngstown State Penguins. I loved this game. I played it for like 3 years. But then it went away, and you were worried about if it would ever come back to full strength. And on a day where we're finally getting a version of this back, College Football 25, we also get news that Nick Chubb is squatting and looking like he's going to be back. So we'll see what that looks like as the summer goes on. Appreciate y'all for watching this video. I appreciate whoever dropped that video too. Thank you for dropping that in the morning and not dropping that after we was all playing college football. I appreciate you, brother. But in all seriousness, This is really good news. Yes, you should be excited, cautiously so. But if you were on the pessimistic side, if you thought that it was impossible for Nick Chubb to come back from this injury and be anything like it, there has been enough evidence that I don't think you should be swayed completely, but you should at least be open to being wrong on that initial synopsis, because Nick Chubb is doing everything. I did not think we would see him squat over 500 pounds this summer. Like, I thought that we would have to wait till next offseason to see something like that. The fact that he is like at 500, like almost 2x, no, more than 2x body weight on a tsunami bar squat. There are people who have never torn their ACLs that will never be able to do that, or had any knee injuries. The fact that he's had 2 and he's still able to do that, absolutely insane. Nick Chubb is a monster, and I think if you have not learned before, maybe you've learned now. No more betting against Nick Chubb. Like, I just would not do it. But anyways, y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.